before I get... Hey y'all, my name is Ashley, and today I'm going to be doing a first impressions and final thoughts on Nomad Cosmetics Fairytale Europe palette. So if you want to see the looks that I was able to get with this palette, what I think of this palette, then keep on watching. Okay, my first look, I think I want to do something that's unique and not just following the rows of this palette, because they kind of set it up for like row by row, or like this section, this section, this section, even though in my opinion this section doesn't really fit cohesively with the rest of the palette. That's just my opinion, but I do like this corally shade as well. I am going to kind of play with it all over, like all over the palette, pick kind of different shades to try to make something unique. And then the other looks I'll do something a little bit more cohesive into the rows that's kind of set up. I think I definitely want to play with that coral shade, the Little Mermaid shade, because I just bought this MAC squirt stick. Not that I need another one in that same fiery coral shade. I love that shade. And it could be just because I'm craving the summer because it has been warmer the last few days here, but we'll see. I am going to go ahead and prime my eyes with the Beauty Creations Eye Base in the shade Ballerina Girl. Now, the reason I bought this palette, okay, it is a beautiful color story for spring, but once they did that like last reveal of Neuschwanstein Castle, I was like, okay, I have to have it. And the reason is because when I grew up a military brat, so my mom is actually from the United Kingdom and my dad's here from the States. But we got to spend, my dad was stationed in Germany from 2001 till 2007. And so I grew up there. Like my childhood is in Germany, and my childhood also consisted of spending every Thanksgiving in that area. So we would travel to Garmisch, and there is an army base out there where they had a military resort style hotel called the Edelweiss, and we would stay there every Thanksgiving, do their Thanksgiving meal there because the food was really good. But also my mom is not one to cook a huge meal. She's going to hate me for saying that on camera. But in her defense, she's British. They don't have Thanksgiving, okay? So we would stay there and we would travel and do activities in the area, which included the Neuschwanstein Castle. So that wasn't really far from where we were staying, and we would go to that castle along with the castle. It's kind of across the way. So it was like a big, like you had the Neuschwanstein Castle, there's another castle right next to it, which was his parents' castle. At least that's what they told us like when we went to go tour it, from what I remember. I could be wrong. But we would go see the Neuschwanstein Castle, the parents' castle, and then the same guy who was with the Neuschwanstein Castle, this is probably sounding really like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I was a child, okay? We would go to the grotto in Austria. So he also had a property where it had like an underground grotto along with different themed tea houses. It was really cool. I really enjoyed going and doing all of that when we lived in Europe. But we got to travel and see a lot of the castles like in Germany. Okay, so I've got that nice and primed. So I'm gonna go in with this black shade. I'm gonna put that in my inner corner and my outer corner. That is the Chilean Castle. I don't think I've been to that one, so I would remember. But I'm gonna use that shade for my inner and outer corner and kind of do like a really bright pop of color in my center of my eye. So I'm just gonna kind of see how pigmented this black is. It's pretty pigmented, I like it. I do find it funny that I'm using the colors that I said don't really fit with this palette. To me, they don't, but that's just my personal opinion. Like, I like the colors. I just feel like within the palette, you could have done it where it opened up like in the middle, kind of similar to Verona from Nomad, where you had like 9 on one side, 9 on the other. Like, cause in a way, those 9 shades go together. So like have the split here and have 2 9 pans within one palette, or 2 9 pan color stories within one palette. I like that layout of the Verona palette a lot. I wish they would do more that way. I'm liking how pigmented this black is and how easy it's buffing and blending out. I think I might be putting this black in my crease as well. Kind of going for a moodier vibe with this palette because I am a person who likes the darker shades. I do like the light shades like for springtime. Those are perfect spring shades within this palette. but I tend to add black with the brightness of spring because I wear a lot of black and it's just my style. Before I get too carried away, I want to go ahead and lay down the black in my crease. My favorite brush to apply shadows in my crease is this one. It's a small fan brush. It's from Scott Barnes, and it's like perfect to get a nice buffed out crease. So I'm going to use that for the black, and just because if anything, I can kind of cut it later on, but it's really great at smoking your crease and just buffing and blending and making it look real good. Look at my awful vocabulary. But you see how it gets it in the crease real nicely? Like, this is one of my favorite brushes. I always use like bling brushes. That's kind of what I have in my vanity. I have a massive amount of them. I don't think the brand's in business anymore, which is really sad because I could totally use more. And I know that I didn't get like their last launch was like these beautiful lavender brushes. I regret not buying those for sure. But there are like specialty brushes that they didn't do shapes of, including this one that I absolutely like need in my collection. And I know like this brush is still available like on Scott Barnes' website. He has fantastic brushes. Okay, so I think I'm going to use the gray in this palette to kind of buff out my black. And that is a word I cannot pronounce, but it's going to be this shade right here. And I'm going to use it to kind of buff out the edges of my gray. So that way when my look is done, it kind of blends real nicely upwards towards my brow. I'm really sad about ruining the embossing on this palette because that embossing is gorgeous. So I'm kind of just buffing this downwards because I don't like to put too much towards my brows because I do have a small amount of space between my brows and my lids. And when I do my eyeshadow too high, it makes my face look really like small, I noticed. So that's just a personal thing. So I'm just going to use that to kind of buff it down. But I have small eyes, so I have to be very careful on how big I make my look. Now I'm gonna deepen up the black. So I'm gonna deepen it back out in my inner and my outer corner so it's nice and dark. And I'm using a very small, precise brush for that because I don't want it to go above my crease. Now I'm gonna cut the inside of my eye just so that way I can get all that black cleaned up and I'll have a nice clean pop of color in the center of my eye. And I'm just gonna clean it up with my eye base because it's just easier to do. All right, y'all, I made a small mistake and I quickly tried to correct it as much as I could. There is a little bit of glitter under my eyes, and that is because I went into a shade and I was trying to use my finger and it went over my entire lid because my nails are too long, so I'm having a little bit of difficulty. This is a user error problem, okay? Like, should I have my nails shorter? I like my nails long though, so. But I'm gonna go ahead and dip into a shimmer. And so I'm gonna start off with the center of the eye and I'm gonna use the shade Snow White. This is just a beautiful, like, look how wet and gorgeous that is. So it's like a white to pink shift. I see a little bit of gold in there as well. This is gonna be beautiful on the center of the eye. So that's where I'm putting it. I'm gonna just place it on the center all the way up to the crease. That is a beautiful shade. That's probably gonna be my favorite shade in the palette. Like, that is on its own just absolutely gorgeous. Now you can see that I did put it all over my lid. It'll be fine because any of these other shimmers will cover up the edges, so I'll be able to stack them a lot better. But that is a beautiful shifty shade. This would look really nice if you have to do a quick look on the go, where you just put a little bit of eyeliner on, a little bit of color in the outer corner, and then pop that on. That like wet duochrome look is on trend for your eyes, at least from what I'm seeing on social media. This would be a perfect shade for that because that is beautiful. And as always, the duochromes from Nomad are super easy to work with, just a finger. You could also use a silicone brush, which is probably what I'm going to do to make my edges nice, clean, and sharp. But before I do that, I am going to dip into another shade. So this is where I don't know what shade. So I'm kind of tempted to do a purple because I do think the purple will go real nicely. So there's the Wicked Fairy shade, which is a darker purple shade, which would be really beautiful on the lid. But then I could also just play with the duochromes and use Sleeping Beauty, but it's a little light to blend in with the black. So I think I am going to go ahead and use Wicked Fairy. But that is a beautiful shimmer shade. It's just a beautiful wet looking purple. And I think I'm going to use that to blend the black in with that duochrome. Oh yes, that is the shade. So now what I'm gonna have to do, because I can't do it with my finger, is I'm gonna use a silicone brush. So the silicone brush I'm gonna use is from Huda Beauty. I don't believe this is on their website, but on this side, this works for glitter as well. It's like a spongy tip applicator. And then on this side is a pointed silicone end. This is really helpful for precision, and it applies like these shimmery chrome shades really well if you have long fingernails like me. So that way you can get the precision and then still have like the really beautiful look of having these chromes on your lids. So I am going to place that between the black and the Snow White shade. Like, that is beautiful. And once I apply it, I'll use my finger to kind of warm the shades together so it blends beautifully. And then I'm gonna take the Wicked Fairy shade and also do it in my inner corner. I really like that. I feel like I somehow took this very girly palette and made it a little bit grungier. I'm gonna put a nice dramatic wing with this look. This look needs that dramatic wing. But before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and soften out the edges with my pink loose powder. One of the things that I do with every eye look that I do is I take a very loose, fluffy eyeshadow brush, dip it into a little bit of my pink brightening powder. And I don't want to use too much, so I want to tap a lot off. And then I'm going to use that to buff out the edges so it's nice and cohesive and blended. Okay, the under eyes. I kind of want to keep it dark in the outer corner and then kind of start to brighten it up and put a shimmer in the inner corner. I feel like this pink, this First Kiss, or Cinderella would be really nice in the inner corner and then kind of bringing it down underneath. And I might be able to blend it with that black real nicely. So to make my life easier, I'm gonna start with the black, and I really just wanna place it just in the outer corner. So just enough to tie my winged liner in with it. So just a smidge, like I don't wanna overdo it. I'm gonna take this darker pink. This is the shade Fairy Godmother. It is a shimmer shade. And I'm gonna use that underneath the eye, blending into the black, because the pink should go really nicely with the duochrome that's on my lid, but then I can get that brighter inner corner with the other two shades. So I'm gonna take the Cinderella shade, which is a little bit brighter. So I'm not gonna use First Kiss, I'm gonna use Cinderella, and I'm gonna use that for the rest of my under eye and bringing it into the inner corner, because that brightness matches my lids perfectly, all at the same time, all while using different colors. So I definitely like that. Like, that is like the cohesiveness this look needed. I'm tempted to add a little bit of purple on my bottom. Ooh. I don't want to overdo it. So I am going to take the Wicked Fairy shade. I'm taking like the smallest amount and placing it a little bit on the black and a little bit on that like hot bubblegum pink, and using that to blend those two shades together. I like that. So it's very shimmery. I'm usually not the kind of person that puts a lot of shimmer on my lower lash line, but I'm really liking it. So this is my first look using the Nomad Fairytale Europe palette. I really like this look. I have a feeling this is going to be my favorite out of all the ones I create. But of course, like, my mind can change within the next few days. But I like how dark I was able to make a preppy palette, if that makes any sense. All right, y'all, I have spent the last month using this palette, and I'm gonna go ahead and insert a reel of my different looks using this palette. first, I'm not gonna lie, like I saw the color story on Nomad's Instagram page and I was like, oh, it is a really beautiful spring color story. And I was like, oh, I have to have it. And part of the reason I wanted to buy it was because of like the Fairytale Europe and with the shades matching like memories from my childhood, including seeing Neuschwanstein Castle when I lived in Germany as a kid. And so I picked it up and then I got it in person and I was a little nervous. And I'm not a neutral girl. I don't like to use browns very often. I'm more of like black and gray. You can kind of see it in my look today. But I'm surprised on how much I've thoroughly enjoyed this palette because even though I didn't get that much use out of this shade or this shade, I did use the black, the gray, and this one. I've used every shade, okay? This palette is so surprisingly versatile because you can do those like soft, very preppy looks, very perfect for spring, but then you can kind of take it darker, which is what I did today. But you've got all these beautiful shimmers and metallics in here that just melt onto your eyelids. They blend like silk, okay? And then you've got this beautiful duochrome called Snow White, which this is probably my favorite shade in the palette. I love to use this as a inner corner highlight, but it's white, but it shifts from pink to gold to orange. It just has a beautiful shift to it. And it adds that light, that brightness a look needs, even if you're doing it dark. So it's actually in my inner corner today. And then I found myself obviously gravitating using the black shades, but even using like the shade Little Mermaid, I did a fiery look where I used the black, the orange coral shade called Little Mermaid, and then the shade Belle, very like fire look. I actually did a get ready with me making that look. But then I also did looks where I just played with the purples or looks just playing with the blues and then the pinks. And I just really enjoyed this palette. And as always, Nomad's formula, it is one of my favorite brands. I enjoy buying palettes from this brand to the point where I have majority of their palettes. Now, if you like a bright pop of color, this is a perfect palette for the spring. But if you're like me and you want to take it dark, you can do it. Like, you can take the blacks and then use the brighter shades and somehow kind of make it a vampy look, even though you're playing with springtime tones. I love this palette, y'all. So I'm really glad that I bought it. I'm glad that I took the time to do several different looks with it. Let me know in the comments below which look you liked. I also have the reel on my YouTube shorts. So if it went by too quick, you can kind of look at it there. But if you like this video, then go ahead and like and subscribe. But until next time, bye y'all.